Hello, hello. Welcome to another client success story with me, your girl, Natalie, the Keto Bikini Pro. And I have a really awesome client here with me today. Mary Grace Henry has absolutely crushed it with her goals with me over the first 6 months we started working together. And then we've continued since then. So I want to say it's been 9 or 10 months, maybe
Yeah,
11.
about 9 months.
Yeah, since then, we've gone through now a reverse diet over the last 4 to 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks total.
Yeah.
And she is getting ready to go on a 2 month trip over the summer overseas to Portugal. So we have been working on bringing her up to maintenance and getting into a sustainable lifestyle that she can continue while she's overseas and not dialing things in as tightly as we have this whole time. And the really cool thing about her story, and I'm going to let her tell it, is that throughout her reverse diet, she has been probably my biggest success story and the poster child for a healthy, sustainable reverse, where she has seen improved body composition, continuously lowering body fat throughout her reverse diet while we've brought her calories up. So this is what I try to preach and teach, that we don't have to fear eating more when we're doing things the right way. So without further ado, let's dive in. Before I start asking all the questions, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do in life, things you enjoy, a little bit about Mary Grace before we get into the rest of it.
Cool. Sure. So like you said, my name's Mary Grace. I just had yesterday my 41st birthday. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and I've got two little boys. I have a almost 9-year-old and an almost 6-year-old. And I would say sort of this health and sort of fitness part of my life started back in 2018 after my youngest son was born. I work with my father here in Atlanta, and he owns a business and a bar restaurant, and I do all the administrative work for him. And mostly I'm able to work from home, even a little before the pandemic. And then the pandemic really, I've been able to work basically from home. So I do have lots of flexibility, as far as time and travel. Like Nat said, we're about to endeavor on a pretty big trip overseas for the summer. So I leave in a few hours. Uh, so that's
Grateful for you making the space and the time to come on here before you head out.
Oh,
I
it's
appreciate you.
great. It's exciting because I do feel like it's sort of like the culmination of like the last 8 months of my life. Both like this journey with you, Nat, and then also you don't think about this when you're planning a big trip, but it also is like another full-time job. So preparing and today's the big day. So it's the unveiling of everything we've done. And then also here we go to the next step, which was kind of where I started coming to you to sort of get myself back to where I wanted to be to start this trip and have a balanced and healthy mindset and lifestyle when I got over there. So
Yeah, so that's the perfect segue into our first question, which is, in terms of your health and fitness, where were you before we started working together, and kind of what was that main motivation for signing up for private one-on-one coaching? And maybe tell a little bit about what you've done up until that point.
sure. So like I mentioned in 2018, I sort of, I've always been pretty active. I've found different things that bring me joy over the years. But in 2018, I was coming out of my second pregnancy, and pregnancies love my babies, but they were my favorite times of my life. And so trying to get back on track, I found a nutritionist, and the nutritionist led me to a paleo diet. And so I started paleo in 2018, stuck with that and did some sort of like home beach body on demand videos for a couple years there.
I think everybody had that stint.
Yeah, I think that's part of all of our journey. And I definitely doing that. Definitely my favorite days were the streak days, and definitely dreaded the cardio days. So, um, after doing paleo, I think at the same time my dad was doing a keto diet, maybe not the same sort of healthy keto, sort of maybe little bit of, the butter chugging stuff and things like that. And so for me, I ended up sort of finding a healthier style of keto. And so I transitioned from just paleo into depleting the carbs and depleting the carbs and ending up in keto. And with some boot camps I did from March 2020, the beginning of the pandemic. I started weight training and lifting weights and boot camp and all the things, the macros, and that went really well for a year and a half or so. Some life events ended up happening that, I slowly began to let accumulate, you could say. I was going on to the track of like weekdays on, weekends off. And so, I had found myself letting things creep up. As a family, we tend to travel a lot, and so I would do really well for either weekdays and weekends off because we would take a small weekend trip, or be pretty on target for 8 weeks of boot camp and then go on a week of vacation and accumulate a couple extra pounds and slam my head against the wall, and instead of like getting back on track, letting those pounds stick, and then the next weekend letting the extra pound stick, and I'd kind of, I wouldn't say completely lost my way because I was definitely still, doing the things, lifting the weights, but I um had lost the consistency and had found myself sort of at a point where I was, very black and white and on track or off track. And I
I
think I
think what
came.
you just described is so relatable because it's what I see happening with the majority of the population. There's a concept of when social events are happening and kind of this allowing the weekends to become this kind of free for all, and then it's a getting back on track over the week, but might take Monday through Wednesday to really get back on track, and now Thursday into, oh, now it's Friday and it's time to do it again. And then this is where I would say the majority of the population find themselves after a year with this extra 10 pounds or 15 pounds added, sometimes 20, because it's like this slow creep over time and not really recognizing what's happening there. And a lot of the time we can be in our heads thinking that, well, we do so well. We're thinking we're doing so well because,
Mhm.
well, we still buy into all of the things that we bought into with paleo, keto, but we don't realize how far off we've actually gotten on a pretty consistent basis.
It creeps back up on you, and I think I remember, like, on our sort of, I don't know if it was the onboarding or the initial call, just talking about, like, wanting to be able to have the balance to, not feel like, "Ooh, where do we have to go to eat so you can eat," or things like that, so I could still have these experiences, but not let it sort of get in the way of what my goals were and my journey was. So, I think that was partially it. And, obviously have been planning this trip for a long time. And so part of it was I wanted to be back in shape before the summer for that. And I think the third part was I was semi cognizant of the fact, of this pattern of these vacations getting me off track, and knowing that I was coming from like a deep deficit into like free for all. And I really did want to figure out like how we could get me back to a healthy maintenance, which I don't think I've been, and I don't think I've ever intentionally eaten the calories that I'm eating right now. Obviously, I've like blacked out almost and like scarfed all these calories before, but where I'm like, okay, today my goal is this much food, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and I think also another thing that I'm sure resonates is I don't know many women who've ever been in a maintenance phase intentionally.
Yeah.
It's always been either getting the weight off
Mhm.
or unintentionally putting it back on. and now getting it off again. And I think that's really where most women have been our entire lives, have been this on and off yo-yo dieting. And
100%. Yeah.
what a weight off, what literally, but also
Exactly. Yeah.
mentally, to not have to worry about getting it off again because this is just life.
Yeah, exactly. And exactly. I mean, I just never imagined sort of like being able to trust my intuition almost, and that's been the last little stretch, and I'm still tiptoeing around that. But it's all a practice, and yeah, I've never not been either, like you said, blindly sort of letting the things creep up and creep back in and things like that, or just the yo-yo, you know.
Yeah. Yep. And you, like so many other women, probably at one point considered yourself very black and white, right? Like, I'm all in, it's all or nothing. I'm either all in or I'm off. And you've really embraced the concept of finding that gray.
Yeah.
Um, so we'll get into some of that and how those things shifted for you. Um, Share any hesitations you might have had, or reservations or concerns you might have had about our time together as you thought about, okay, I'm committing to this 6 months. Yikes.
Yeah. After having sort of let things sort of creep out of control, I think that it was kind of intimidating and scary to know that I was going to go back into, that every week check-in. And I know I'm probably jumping ahead, but now the accountability is something that I think that helped me thrive. But I think that was my fear probably at the beginning, was having that accountability to, you know,
Someone else.
yeah, somebody else is really watching what I'm doing here. And you're investing money, and you're investing, you're making a commitment not only to myself, to you, to the family, because it's a financial investment. And so, if you're going to do this, you're going to do this. So I think that the thing that I ended up appreciating most was probably what I was most fearful of, which was sort of being accountable and showing up.
Yeah. And I think it's totally fine for us to jump around here. I want to jump down to the surprises, right? Because I remember some very key moments of, you're a person when you go all in, it
Mhm.
was, you came from a background of being very strict and eating whole foods, paleo, keto, all these things are out. It's the worst thing if you eat a strawberry, right? And so I know some of your surprises were like, wait, what? I could play around with adding dairy in. I could eat nuts. I could have fruit.
Yeah.
Any way I can fit this into my macros. So yeah, share a little bit about those surprises along the way for you.
I mean, I think they started from like the very beginning. I think that when we talked, you sort of asked me like, when you go off track, or when you don't, what is it that you like to do? What is it that you eat? Where do you end up? And I think I told you like, I don't go crazy. I like, some chocolate, or, some squares of chocolate bars, or I like a little bit of a nut butter or something like that. And I think that was the initial and first surprise, where you told me like, maybe just build in 200 calories a day or 100 calories a day. And I was like, I can do that. I don't have to like have all my macros figured out, and like portions on a scale of what I'm going to eat every day for the next 7 days. And for me to have that sort of cushion to where it didn't have to be so black and white, so particular and regimented, to be able to like, have that flexibility. I think that was sort of the very first of my ahas, maybe. I learned how to tweak also my meal prep, so that it didn't have to be like your breakfast weighs 400 grams and this is what you're going to scoop out every day. Your lunch weighs this, and this is your, like army almost, like here's your spoonful. And to be able to say like, well, today I feel like, an extra egg, or I feel like adding some bacon, and then you adjust lunch. I have no idea how I was going through life thinking that, there was only one way of doing things. And so opening up my mind that, you know, my hunger is going to change, and even cravings are going to change, and things like that, and to be able to have the flexibility to modify without necessarily like, oh well, what, hit the fan and start over
Oh,
next week.
well, now that I haven't tracked this one thing, I might as well not track the rest of the day because
Yeah,
yeah,
start over tomorrow. And then, when the tracking's not watching or the scale's not watching, then,
things creep in because, oh, now it's not being, nobody's going to see it.
right, exactly.
So, but I always like to say, right, your body's tracking anyway.
100% right. So yeah, and to be able to know that, okay, you can have this flexibility, but still nail your macros and still base off of whole foods and still be, healthy. Um, and choose like, oh, I got some strawberries today. I've got like 5 grams of carbs. Maybe I want some strawberries, and that's okay. So that was sort of the process, was first building in a little bit for myself, and then knowing that there was some, space for adjusting for how I'm feeling as a human. And yeah, the next thing probably was dairy. Dairy was a big aha for me. I took out dairy obviously with paleo. And then sort of the keto that I was focused on was also sort of against the dairy. And so it just never occurred to me, like, you don't have to gnaw on a brick of cheese, right? Like, if there's a dish that you like that has cheese in it, I just decided to try how I would feel. And, I ended up finding out it doesn't really negatively affect me. And I think that probably if I did like gnaw on a stick of cheese, then that might lead me down a, not good path. And I could easily find myself overdoing my macros or something like that because of, they are calorically dense. But if I wanted to mix it into something, a dish that I'm cooking, or if I want to plan ahead and plan a charcuterie, because that's like my favorite thing in the world, then there's possibilities out there. Again, not black and white.
Yes, exactly that. And I think that that ties in with this concept of restriction. And when we do go overboard, when we have these moments of not tracking, it's because the brain is like, well, you never get to have this. What else do you not normally have? Have it all right now because tomorrow it's going to be out again.
Your last chance.
But when you start to realize that, also too, I think what you discovered with the dairy is that the dose makes the poison. If
Yeah.
you're including a small amount of it as a part of a recipe, as a part of a larger meal, and you're not having a whole lot of it all at once, your body can handle that.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, when I say dairy, I mean I might have dairy 3 times a week. It doesn't mean that now I have dairy in my coffee and cheese on my eggs and, a cheese stick for a snack. And I'm not like all day long, like, let me find, oh, I can have dairy now. Let me put dairy on everything. It doesn't have to be that either. Here we go again. It's
And
the,
it's the same, you're right. It's that concept of when I feel that everything's allowed,
yep.
right? It's the trade-offs conversation. And it's the everything's allowed. I'm a human being. I can have everything. There's no can and can't. But there's an amount that's going to work within my goals.
Yep.
And I have these macros so that I can hit these goals. And if I sacrifice this much of my macros for this indulgence, it's taking away from another meal that I could have that day. So you start to learn those trade-offs. And
Yep.
now you recognize that it's a choice and you feel empowered in those choices rather than a slave to your desires when they come up.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, you've rocked that too. It's been really awesome to see like how you've been able to fix those things and fit those things in here and there and recognize when it is impacting you and then pull back.
Yeah. And when it's worth it, like, just because, you can do whatever, just because you can eat any one certain thing doesn't mean you have to every time. You can think about, is this worth it to me? I mean, how's it going to affect my stomach later on today? How's it going to affect my workout and things like that? And then you can decide, with each thing, it's a decision, right?
Yes,
I think,
exactly. And it's tuning in with yourself. It's not because coach said so,
yeah,
right?
you're famous, you're the CEO of your body, and pretty cool to realize that. Yeah. I think that the 2 years of keto that I did before in the boot camps, that, I didn't know that I was the one in charge.
Right. They're not, nobody's living with you smacking things out of your hand, right? It's like,
Yeah.
well, I could have that, but how's that going to impact me? And now you're empowered with that knowledge, right? And I think that's a huge part of it for you, and to acknowledge for yourself is that tuning in. Because where we tend to go wrong is when we don't want to look at what it's doing to us because we enjoy the taste of it so much that we just start to say, well, it doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
In reality, there may be some things we need to look at and
Yep.
acknowledge that this thing I love the taste of, I don't love the way it makes me feel. And it's
Might not
holding me
serve
back.
me. Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
So let's actually talk about what were your biggest challenges you had to overcome throughout this journey?
Um, I think the mindset was really huge. For a time, I felt like I had some challenges with time and, balancing uh life and work and my again, this like all or nothing. I this is the workout I'm supposed to do today, and this is the walk I'm supposed to take today, and feeling like I had to get it all in, and being able to shift that too, and being able to shift, like, you know today, if I was supposed to work out Monday through Friday, those are the days that I train. Then you train Monday through Friday, and then being able to be like, you know what, Wednesday I have a lot of meetings, and sort of challenge was, I guess, time management is the more encapsulated answer. That was, it was tough, but I feel like I'm in a totally different, place right now with that. I mean, I'm still today, like, you might get that workout in, you might train today, you might not, and accepting that and knowing that that's not gonna like mess up all my gains or anything. Um, Definitely one of them. The second thing was maybe bouncing back from these social situations. If I have a friend in town, and understanding inflammation, understand.
Ah, okay, share that story. It was such a powerful one of that aha moment you had with the inflammation.
Yeah, so in October, I had a really good friend. He comes and visits often from Europe, and he came in town with his girlfriend. And we were sort of at the beginning of our time together. And I think you had said, you know what, take the weekend. You've been doing excellent. If you feel like you can track, you can track. If you can't, just, you can loosen up the reins a little bit. And I didn't go wild. I didn't go crazy, but I think, like, there were things that we ate that I normally wouldn't eat. And we had like Indian and probably didn't pick the best sauce, and so when I did my check-in that Sunday, I remember like writing you like, she's gonna kill me. I'm up 5 pounds on the scale and I've got to tell her the truth. And I just remember writing you like, oh shoot, well, here you go. I've just ruined the last 2.5 months of what we've been doing or whatever. And I'm feeling down on myself because I was, up on the scale, and saying, these friends came to see me. They didn't gain 5 pounds this weekend. I gained 5 pounds this weekend. And your response to me was, most people, Mary Grace, live in a state of inflammation. And so flipping that switch for me, that my body was so in tune, and my body I am in tune with my body, and able to notice and able to recognize these shifts, whether it's in bloated or puffiness or on the scale or things like that, that like, they might walk around with those 5 pounds all the time. So, they're walking inflammation. And it's almost like to me, it became a gift that I can recognize when I'm doing things that aren't serving me or aren't making, taking me towards my goal, because my body puffs up, my body tells me. And so to shoot, I'm sorry, my screen
Right.
switched. It's my yard guy in the backyard. I'm sorry. um, just to be able to recognize, that it's just inflammation. And so you don't have to throw in the towel. You don't have to like raise your arms in the air and say, well, I messed that up, I'm done. Um, you just hop right back on. It will just fall right back off,
And it
So
did. It did. And you
it's
felt so much better. And then you started, but yes, that is one of my favorite stories of our time together, that it was such an aha moment for you that, yeah, I don't need to compare myself
yeah,
to people who are not on the same journey
yeah,
as I am. And I love that concept of this being a gift, right? The inflammation, the water weight, the things that happen when we do go off track, or just, I don't love that concept of going off track anymore. It's just about eating things we don't normally eat, things that cause inflammation in our body, and being able to recognize that and then not let that take you off track going forward, not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, is
yeah,
what will then keep you progressing, because you're not defeated in your head.
exactly, exactly. And it allows for you to have those, if do I want to do that like every weekend, eat things that I don't normally eat? Probably not. But if it's a friend that I see twice a year and we have a tradition of eating Indian food together, I'm just making up an example, and we're gonna have a really nice meal, and do I want to do that, once every 6 months? Maybe. And that, you can choose when it's worth it and when it's not.
Absolutely. And you had a very similar experience with alcohol.
Yeah.
I remember that being a challenge at the beginning. And then you took a challenge, you decided to take it out for a little bit. You ended up taking it out for a lot longer. And now tell me a little bit about how that progressed for you and where you are now with like having a drink from time to time, and how you feel about that versus how you did at the beginning.
Sure. I'm sorry. He's trying to get out of my gate. Just a second. I'm so
No
sorry.
worries. Yeah.
We can cut this out. No, I'm just kidding. Just a second.
It's real life, people. They're
Yeah.
real people. I
There you
love
go.
these moments because it shows like the women who get results with me are human beings like everybody else.
Yes, with
Not superhuman.
the yard guy banging on the back door. Sorry. Yeah, so it's kind of, same, but different. The alcohol, the last probably 2 years, I had sort of found myself like doing like 50 days, 30 days, with zero alcohol. And what I would do typically then would be like, okay, today I'm going to go have, drinks with friends, or I'm going to whatever, we're going to go to this patio and we're going to do. And so it was sort of the same idea of, one day that you're not tracking. So what you don't track doesn't get seen. It was like, well, and also I think of it with like nuts, or I think of it with alcohol, or the same thing we talked about, where it's like, okay, so tomorrow I'm going back for another 90 days. So I better get it all in today. And instead of like enjoying one glass of wine, or enjoying, one whatever cocktail it is or whatever, it was like, I got to get it all in right now because 100 days. So, better fit it in now. And so I think that I had written you at one point and said I was, toying with the idea of not drinking, period. And then I came back to you like a week later and said, you know what? I think I want to do this the opposite way. I want to give myself permission to have a drink when I want to have a drink. and not have to look at setting goals of these long periods of time of abstinence, because I felt like that's the part that wasn't serving me. Because eventually I'm probably going to have a drink with a friend, or I'm going to want to go to a restaurant and enjoy a glass of wine with my steak that pairs well. And so rather than make it about, I'm never going to do it again, and then inevitably probably falling on my face at some point, I decided to sort of flip that switch and say, Mary Grace, you know what? You choose to have a drink. And I have had so many less drinks since I made that decision than when I was trying to do this, abstain, when I was trying to abstain.
Yes, exactly that, exactly that. And it's so powerful. That shift. And that's really the underpinning of everything we've done together. It's this shift of all or nothing to, well, let me check in with myself, how I'm feeling, where I am, what's the situation, what did it do to me last time? Is it worth it? Right. And now you're in these positions of power, making
Right.
decisions out of a place of power and empowerment and knowing yourself. And it's so much easier to moderate now.
Yeah,
Did you ever think you'd be a moderator, by the way?
no, on anything. On anything.
Training too. Actually, I'd love to go back to the training conversation because I don't want to just skip by that. That was a massive shift you made in training Monday through Friday, 5 days a week in a row without a rest, right?
Yeah.
And this concept of getting the whole training in, and probably thinking like of always pushing yourself in the training too, and not like
Not listening to
natural
Mary Kay.
deloads, right? We talked
Exactly.
about natural deloads.
Yeah, and actually, this week is kind of a good example. Obviously, yesterday was my birthday. I'm leaving today. There's so many sort of final details. And, still I have these moments where if you go upstairs and look on my calendar, it says like legs and glutes, quad day. And then it says like back and arms yesterday. And then it says glutes and hammies today, and I had it all mapped out, so I still like have those moments, but arriving to this week and encountering, you know, time constraints and encountering that I am exhausted. I chose this week to basically make this week a deload because I knew that, I don't have a lot of time, but I don't want to not go, or I don't want to not be able to train. And so listening to not time and listening to my body and being able to say, you know what, it's getting in there. You posted it today on your Instagram, but just getting in there, it feels better than not moving at all. And so, I was supposed to be on day 4 today. I'm going to try and squeeze in day 3, and sort of being able to look and feel out my time and my energy and all those things and make a decision according to how I feel. Um, and learning to sort of look ahead too. That was another big one. Like on Sunday, just look ahead at my week instead of saying Monday through Friday, to look and see, okay, I like to get 3 walks, it's going to probably rain on Wednesday. Let me make Wednesday a good day to be in the gym. It's going to be super sunny on Thursday, and sort of instead of like, this is the way it is, looking at all kinds of things, my work schedule, looking at the weather, and then like being able to adjust accordingly. And then if the day happens and it got away from you, I think it was Monday got away from me. I just didn't get to do anything. I didn't. And it was just, you just next day you do it, you hop right back on, sort of the same.
I love that. I love that so much because you're actually, and you've gotten, your results prove that you've gotten better results doing it this way than what you were doing before. Sometimes, and I always like to say, right, muscle is built in recovery, not in the breakdown part. So if we're constantly breaking it down, we're not giving ourselves enough rest. And sometimes it's that breaking it up and having a rest day in between. So you're not doing it 2 rest days in a row and then five
Yeah.
days of work. And I know another fear for you too was cutting back from 5 days to 4 days.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh my God, am I going to lose all my gains?
Isn't it wild that like all my struggles and fears were like of basically not being perfect, sort of, not having the 5 days in a row, not having every single meal weighed out, and I have the results that I never got before by allowing it. What I wanted sort of in the beginning is allowing this to be a part of my life and not run my life, and not go, 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 hit a wall, go, 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 hit a wall, making it ebb and flow just like everything does. So
And this is how you get to keep the results for life, because it's now not a phase, right? What we always hear is like, oh, I'm thinking about doing your program, or I'm thinking about signing up with you, but I have to wait until everything lines up in my life and I have this window of time that I can go hard and do all the things. And then that's all they're thinking about. And then, well, if you're doing it that way, if you have to wait for everything to be perfect, then you're not going to be able to sustain it. And then you're going to lose the results and you're going to have to do another program and another program every year.
and start all over again. I think that was my biggest sort of goal, was to not come back from Portugal after this extended trip starting over again. I mean, and also preparing myself that it's not going to be the same over there, and letting go of the scale over there. But trusting myself enough that I have a good enough hold on this person that I have become, that I'll never lose track of that.
And we've talked about your wins this whole time, but I think that for you is your biggest win, right?
Yeah, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure. I mean, that was, yeah, it's part of your identity at the end of it all, right? So, yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what's next for you. You're going to Portugal, but like, what are you thinking about in terms of your health and fitness over the next few months, and then just life after that?
Yeah, it's a question that I don't know I completely have the answer to. Next is this trip. I planning to continue to incorporate, health and fitness, and foods that make me feel good over there. And then when I get back, I've got different sort of ideas as possibilities. I become super interested in all things the health and fitness myself. And so I just finished a certification for a personal trainer. I have a nutrition course, so maybe dipping my toes into that a little bit. I have, you know, very toyed with the idea of, maybe a competition or something. I'm not sure. We'll see. But I just know that I have a passion for lifting heavy things that, even yesterday I was having a stressful day, and it's like, what do you want to do? I think I'd feel better if even if I just go push around, the barbell for 30 minutes. So, um, you know, try to continue to thrive in this lifestyle, basically. So we'll see.
Oh
There's
yeah.
lots of things out there. I'm looking forward to coming back, and I've really enjoyed getting to know everybody in the group and everything. And it's been so cool to see other people that are sort of in the same, we might be in all different places around the country and the world. Uh, but it's cool to know sometimes you can feel pretty lonely when you're, you know, think you're the only one that has all this, passion in you about this stuff. So it's fun to know there's other people out there.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. And you've been such an inspiration in the group when you post and share your lessons, your wins, your struggles. So
Yeah.
I appreciate and thank you for showing up, not just with me, but with the group as well. I know so many women. It's really a lot of your insights have helped.
Well, I every I mean, I have no words for the experience that I had with you. It was like, I expected, all right, I'm gonna drop, this weight. And I know that if I'm told sort of what to do, I'm a rule follower. I'm gonna do the things. But I had no idea the transformation that I've had. I mean, might tear up, that I've had overall as a person. So I'm super thankful. I have no words.
That's my mission in this world. So and I applaud you because it was your embracing of it and your opening up and your sharing and communicating that made all that happen. So
Yeah. The
that's amazing.
feeling, the feeling's mutual. It's a pretty incredible, and I watch people and I hear people, and it's a very cool thing that's happening. So
Well, okay, one last question before we hop off, and it's what advice would you give someone else that's just getting started on their health and fitness journey?
sure. Um, you know, that life happens, you know, life happens, and we've all been there and we all start from somewhere. And, the best decision that you can make is to choose your health and choose what makes you feel good. And it might be uncomfortable for a little while, but once you are in this and you start feeling better, you're gonna realize it feels a lot more uncomfortable to go back, It's a lot more uncomfortable to go back to where you started. And, life's gonna happen sometimes, and it's not all gonna be perfect, but you just have to keep moving towards that goal. And with all the setbacks and, like, roundabouts and all of that, just keep moving in the direction of what makes you feel good and strong and, lift heavy things.
I love that you brought up the concept of grace, really is what you're talking about, right? And you were in the Grace and Grind Challenge. Now you're in the Grace and Grind membership. Grace is in your name, right? But it's kind of funny because it was really what you had to learn to embrace for yourself is that grace part. You had the grind down. And now you've got the grace and the grind, and now that was really shining through in your advice is, hey, you know what, let yourself off the hook for whatever happened that got you to where you are. If you don't like where you are, you've got to forgive yourself, and you've got to be able to move forward, and the only way you can move forward is looking at the pain of where you are and what you've done, and recognizing that it's real and it's happened,
Yeah,
but not to stay there and not to be stuck in beating yourself up over it because it will never move you forward. And then just take that next
that's
step.
right, the next step, that's it. Yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much for being here, for sharing
Yeah.
your story. I know this will touch so many lives. And maybe y'all will see Mary Grace as a coach in a keto bikini program.
We shall see. Thank you. It's
Happy birthday to
uh,
you.
thank you
Uh,
so much.
Congrats for all your incredible success. Good luck on your trip, and I cannot wait to see how this unfolds over the next few months.
I'll definitely stay in touch and post all the things and keep y'all in the loop. So thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.